Hi guys, Greg here from GN Tiling. I'm on the next project for Build of A&E, and today we're going to be laying some C1 matting from Durabase. This product's by a company called Durabase. Really love this product. I'm going to go through why we do it, how we do it, and what it's for. So guys, this is the product here. It's from a company called Durabase C1 Plus matting. We basically love to use this product on floors. I really like to use them basically when you've got underfloor heating involved in floors, especially on new screeds. It just prevents any movement, so if you get any sort of movement coming through, any sort of cracking on your substrate, you do get that sometimes. It's very common. This stuff basically prevents it from coming through onto our tiles. We don't want any cracks coming through onto our tiles, so this is our safety net. So I'm going to go through what it is, what it comprises of, what it does, and then how we actually go about installing this stuff and how we install it and why I do the things I do. Some people do it a little bit different to me. I'm not saying the way I do things is 100% how you should do stuff, but I feel like this is the right way and the correct way of laying this, and I'll explain that and how we do it. Let's get this open and I'll show you what it's all about. With each one of these rolls, it always comes with this little leaflet here. So I advise that you read this. It gives you the proper way basically of how to lay it, and just gives you a few little tips. So if you're not 100%, it kind of explains a lot of it here. But what it doesn't tell you is the correct way really of going about cutting your room in. They can't give you everything on this. This was pre-primed last night with 2 coats of an acrylic based primer that we like to use. So the picture here just describes, you've got a cracked substrate. There's your adhesive that's underneath the matting. There's your matting, you put that down correctly, which we'll go through shortly. Your adhesive for then sticking your tiles down. Straight on top, lovely. Depending on the size of your floor, you might still need to put some expansion joints in it. This floor, we're all right. We don't need to put any in. If it was any bigger, we would need to put one in, but we don't do in this instance, so we won't go through that today. This is our matting. It's easy enough really. These are 10-metre rolls. Normally they come at 30-metre rolls. The only little pain with the 10-metre rolls is they roll up a little bit on the corners, but I'll show you how to get over that in a minute. It's a little tip, real easy. The reason why I like this stuff, just quickly, you've got this backing to it, which is like a little bit of a fleece. Now when we put our adhesive down, as long as we do the right consistency, which again we'll go through again later, the adhesive bonds to this like nothing you've ever seen. You can't get it off. So it will stick to the substrate as long as it's been primed, and obviously all scarified pre us turning up. Then once that's primed, the adhesive will stick like that, like Billy O. It will then stick to this, and then on the tile on top of here, and all my adhesive bonds inside all these little cocoons here. And there's like another mesh, you can just see that running through. You've got a green one there, and then you've got like more of a transparent one coming across it. And all the adhesive binds into that, bonds to the back of my tile, and it's literally going nowhere. You've got to destroy your floor to get the tiles up. They don't just pop up, so that's why we love using this stuff. And because it's metre widths, it's so much easier for us to set up rooms, and if you're doing it yourself at home, there's less to think about because it's not like a random measurement, and meters are just so much easier to handle as well. And because this has got a plastic top in, when you're using it, it's rigid enough so it doesn't all fold back on itself. It stays nice and flat and true when we stick it. So I'll go through the process of how we cut it, what we do when we're measuring up as well, and we'll go through that now. First thing I like to do is I decide which way we're going to do it. Because they're metre wide, this is why it's so good. This room, basically, if I go from this outer wall here to where we're finishing over in the door threshold over in the corner there, it's actually just a smidge over 3 metres. Ideal for us because these are obviously a metre wide. So what I'm going to try and do is have a metre run straight through here, then a metre run going this way, and obviously then I've got a cut piece. I'm going to cut around all these walls into our doorway down the bottom. Gives you a few little funky cuts. So our first strip is approximately at the moment going to come to about that mark. So what we'll do, I've just measured the length of the room from the doorway down the far end to this back wall, and that's 9 metres and 80 mil. So I'm going to cut myself a length of that, lay it in here, and then I'm going to cut around all these doorways, show you about that. And the reason why I do that is a lot of people had come up to this wall because it's easier, cut a straight rip off, just plop that in, and then start again. Problem with that is then you're putting a break in your doorway here. For whatever reason, if your substrate was to move and crack, heaven forbid it shouldn't, but you can see here we've got a bit of a thin piece on the screed, just because obviously there's a doorway here. That is more likely to crack than through a larger area here. This is about 3 meters across here. So if you put in a split there, you've got more chance if it does crack, it's going to transfer through because you're putting a gap in your matting. I don't like to do that. The only gaps I have in it is where the meters butt up to each other, but I butt them dead tight. You can get a jointing strip for larger areas, but we don't need that in this situation. But you can buy a jointing strip as well off them, which is about, I think it's 150 mil wide to put over your joints. So yeah, I like to do that. A bit more awkward, just getting this cut round, as you can probably imagine, this whole run here, and then I've got to cut all this round here, but makes for a better job, and I know I can sleep sound at night that this isn't going to move. So we got our measurement earlier, 9 meters and 80 mil. So I've just rolled this out, just done it in 2 sections to make life a little bit easier. So this is now our mark. This is another reason why I love this stuff. It cuts beautifully. Because you've got these you basically use these holes, these lines, whatever, as markers. Because this stuff is so good and so true, I can do that. So where my pen mark is, it's right on the edge of this little cocoon. So I'll just lay them along level, make sure I'm lined up all the way along. Job done. Run that across there, and then you just got to sometimes just cut the back of the fleece out a little bit. Always good just to put a brand new blade in when you're doing this, just makes life a bit easier. That's all. Job done. This is where I was on about, it's going to make it life a bit easier because these smaller rolls, they do roll up a little bit. So what we got to do is actually flip this over and then we'll roll it back on itself, and that'll help us keep this a bit straighter. So that end's rolling up on me a lot. So all I do, roll it back nice and tight, and just give a bit of pressure. Just because it's plastic, just trying to bend it back the other way. So now I want to lay it down. Isn't wanting to roll all over the place. Little trick there for you. I'm just going to repeat that process the other end now, where Alex is. Now it's not going everywhere. It's not rolling up, it's not folding on us. Makes it a lot easier to use now, this product. I like to pull it nice and tight, because when I'm marking up now, again, I'll go through these cuts now with you. If you don't pull it nice and tight, when you're actually marking it up, you might end up, when you've done all your cuts, it doesn't fit. So you don't want that. So you're just going to be recutting stuff. We folded it all back, we've got it all as we want it, so I've laid it into my door so that I know that's now right. Little thing just to double check with, I like to measure my wall just to make sure I'm running parallel to a point. You might be a couple of mil here or there, but that's not too precious with laying the mat in. So at the minute I'm at 329 there, I'm at 330, so I'm happy with that. So to mark up this first cut, I can measure back off this wall, because I'm going to come to around here with my matting. So we've got skirting and everything. I like to just give a little bit of room. So all you do is mark 290 on your mat there. Because I'm parallel, I can mark 290 there. This is why I like to do this, because I can make 2 marks at the same. Easy peasy. Join it up. And all you got to do is lay your level then alongside your wall. I generally eye this in. You might want to do it on tape at home, but you can just eye this in. My level is parallel to this wall here, so I know that's good. Run my pen down there, job done. And you just literally run your knife down where you've marked. Carefully your fingers. And again, just cut the fleece out the back. And that's it. So I know when this gets pushed up, I'm bang on. But I'll leave that there for a minute because I know I'm parallel. I can use that to help me mark the rest of this out. So with stuff like this, you don't necessarily have to go all the way around this. I like to get some matting in the back end here, just because why wouldn't you? Because it's easy enough to cut and I can do it. So all I do is measure from my wall. You can give it a little bit of space around this area. So that's measuring it bang on 90 mil. So I'll cut that at about 80. And then from here to there is running at about 205. So I'll cut that at about 215. So I get myself in line with the center. Measure twice, cut once, and all that. Lay my level in there. I can use these marks again to keep myself nice and parallel, so I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this. You know, I lay that in and I can follow these marks, draw my line, just repeat the process the other side, like that. Job done. If I cut that square out, I know that'll plop over the top of there, lovely. So through all this process, we haven't moved this matting once. I know I'm still tight to my door. I know I'm still running lovely and parallel along here. So now all I need to do, well I say all I need to do, is I've got to sort this doorway out. First thing we do, I measure back from this wall. Now, because we like to have all of our door frames undercut so we can slide underneath them, I can measure back from that wall and I can actually measure to about there on the door frame. For whatever reason we're doing, just need to wiggle this mat because there will be a bit of deflection in this wall. At the end of the day, they are dab walls. It's an external wall and they're going to be pretty good, but there will be a little bit of deflection in it. Just got that little bit of room to shimmy. What I don't want is my matting cut to be over here somewhere. I want to make sure that I'm under here, or at least on this edge, absolute minimum. But I like to sail underneath if I can. If I measure back to there, so that's measuring to this side of the frame at 790. So if I cut that at just over 790, because it's coming off the walls fractionally, then I can just wiggle that across and I'll be good. So I'll probably do it about 795, something like that. So I'll make a mark on here where I want to be. But I can make a mark and I can allow a little bit of space, about 10 mil off this wall, because obviously you've got skirting. By the time you've done that with a bit of stick behind it, you're going to be at about 20 mil, 21 mil. So if I mark that back at about 10 mil, I know this matting's going to sail just underneath the skirting. My tiles are going to be on top of it lovely and the skirting's going to be on top of this. You've got a little bit of expansion, that's what we want. So my little able assistant Alex is just put me 3 bags of adhesive down here. So I've got 60 kilograms this end now. So what that does is give me a bit of weight. So what I can do for the first time, just pull my matting back. So I've got my mark that I just measured a minute ago off the wall is all the way down here. And if you remember, I marked up the edge of my frame. That's these 2 marks here. So what I do, if I lay that down there nice and parallel, I know these marks is the face of there. So I can transfer that line up here, make that lovely and big. So I got it for the other side as well. No point trying to get too clever with that. Then I've made my mark to that wall. So again, use these lines. It's literally just repeating the process. Make my mark, job done. I cut this first long line. So if you measure your door frame, this one's 160 mil. So what I'll do, I'll measure the 160. And what I'll do is, I don't actually cut it all the way back until I know I'm good. So I'll just stop short. So that's at about 145. What we've just quickly done is we've just actually shifted the matting back over. My hole fits over where I've just cut that out. We're good down this bottom end down here. We're still tight to our door. Our cutout we did first off fits lovely, exactly how we want it. If we come back up this end, this one nicely into our wall, we got our 10 mil gap like I wanted. I'm underneath my door frame like I wanted. So at the minute, we're happy days. So next thing, as you can see, this is lying underneath. This is right underneath past where the screed goes. So I know if anything transfers through, it's gonna hit my matting. Lovely, I'm happy with that. So I lay it in nice and tight. Have a little look at what my wall's doing. So looking at it, that is where I want to be. So again, it's just repeating the process. A little bit awkward in these areas, but if you lay your level in. The great thing with this stuff is you can also just trim a little bit more off if you need it. And then that runs in there lovely against this wall, exactly what we're after. Happy days. So our next thing to sort out is over here. So in this instance, because the waste pipe's so close to the manifold, what we're actually going to do is just cut a big L shape out here. Rather than doing the big squares out like we just did over in the kitchen area, we don't need to do that here. I can't actually tile in here, because this is where the underfloor heating pipes are tracking in to come into the manifold. So I'll end up back here, but all this is inside a unit and cupboards. You'll never see a light of day. Anyway, so I'll mark this up now, cut that, and then this piece is done. Marking this one up and use this mat I've already put down as like a bit of a gauge, so I can measure from it underneath this frame. I can measure from it to where this wall is. I can use this to get a lot of my measurements. I've drawn a black mark, you might see, just down here on the side of this matting. That's in case, just if we stand on it or whatever and it slips, we can just move this mat back to where it needs to be. Because obviously I'm going to be using this now as like my key piece of matting, because everything's going to be fitted up to it. Also, if you've got a bigger area to do and you sort of peel the mats back, if you put a mark on the floor, you know where to trowel to. So you haven't got loads of adhesive all over the place, you kind of stick inside your lines. Make a mark there, so I know that's for this door frame. And again, if I make a mark there, I know this is this for this wall here, so all of this will be cut out, but I'll have to cut the shape out because obviously this then dives back for the wall inside where the utility area is. We've cut everything out, we've rolled our mat back, we're sort of ready to go, start sticking. Alex has just done me a little mix. So, how we like this is a little bit wetter than normal. You can go a fraction wetter than that, to be fair, but that's fine. You want it just dropping off. You got your gauging trowel, just want that dropping off a little bit. That's a little bit too wet for tiling. So I like this just a little bit wetter because then it bonds underneath the matting really nicely to that fleece. This is the stuff we're using today. This is from Adhesives, Britflex. This is again from Trinity Tiles and Bathrooms in Leamington. It's where we've bought everything for this job. It's an S1 adhesive. This is slow set, just gives us a little bit more time with the drying. You can use a rapid. I quite like to use slow set, to be fair. Just gives me a little bit more time for adjustment if I need it. Yeah, this stuff's great. I'll say fully S1, suitable indoor, outdoor, walls, floors. This is as strong as anything. It's non-slip, fully flexible, great for underfloor heating as well. Goes on most substrates, to be honest with you. Sometimes you've got to use different primers, but this stuff's ace. Yeah, using a 3mm trowel for this. I like to use a thinner trowel for it because then when we smooth this down and force everything out, we get all the air out. It's a lot easier, and that's all we really need to keep nice and tight to your floor. If your floor's all over the place, I'd recommend that you latex it first. This has all been screeded anyway. It's all nice and flat. It's brand new screed. It's pretty much perfect. So I know I can use a nice tight trowel on this and it's going to be bang on, and I stick lovely to my nice flat floor. Many different ways of actually sticking this down. There's two things you can use. You've got a big heavy roller, which we do have, but we don't use that on smaller floors, just 'cause it just gets in the way. Go a little bit old school with it. All this is an old grouting paddle, which I've screwed into a block of wood. But it's a nice flat surface and I can put some pressure through it. So you want to transfer as much weight through the matting as you can, because obviously you want the matting to really adhere to this adhesive here. In this instance, I've troweled out 2 rows, so it's just easier for me for troweling. And then all I do is put this on, loads of pressure on it. All I'm literally doing is just putting my weight through it. If you haven't got any of this stuff and you're doing it at home, you can walk all over it, just get something heavy, block of wood, a level, anything like that. As long as you put some weight through this and you just stay consistent with it so you don't get the mat folding and sort of twisting. Try and keep everything in straight lines as best way you can. And what you're going for when I put the next one down is to get this seam as tight as you can. You don't want it splaying, because then it's kind of defeating the object of why you're putting it down. Because if your substrate does crack, you've got an area there where it can transfer through to your tiles. So we need to try and avoid that at all costs, really. I'll just repeat the process now on this next one, and then we'll finish these 2 runs off. So So we've just loosely laid that in initially. If you can see here, this is where the join is between the two, and that's absolutely butt tight. So I haven't pushed it down yet, because if I did slightly be out, it's not fully stuck down. So I can sort of push and pull it where I want it, give it a little kick in whichever direction I want it. So now I'm just gonna repeat the process of pushing it down, get all the air out, and get this stuck. Right then guys, so that's the end of that process. Everything's now stuck, all went in like a dream. You can see why we take so much time at the start to keep everything nice and straight and square, and we're cutting everything and drawing the lines out on the floor to make sure nothing slips. Because then when you actually go to stick it, it should in theory go where you've already cut it. So that's just why we do that. We didn't have to trim anything. Through into here, everything's down as we cut it, and it's all worked out lovely. So now we're gonna look at starting to set some tiles up. We're not actually gonna stick any down today. This is a slow setting adhesive, and obviously the temperature at the minute is a bit cooler. It's not too bad in here. It's about 5 degrees in here, 6 degrees. But this adhesive will take a few hours just to set. So I'm not gonna waste the rest of the day. We're just gonna look at setup now with tiles, start doing a few cuts ready, and then the next part of the video, we'll go through obviously the installation of the tiles.